So many people want to be an authority. But others, they can't even handle themselves. If you can't handle yourself, you can't handle other folk. And so he himself is under the authority of Jesus Christ. Let the Corinthian church boast of their favorite preachers. He wanted no part in it. He, like all the others, was just one of those who belonged to Christ. Doubtless Paul had seen the great sea-going galleys which enabled Rome to rule the seas. They were a beautiful sight. Their long lines were full of grace and remembrance. Their banks of oars, tiers above tier of them, moved rhythmically back and forth, up and down like the wings of some great bird. Paul had seen the gallery of slaves and long line chained to their seats, wedded to the oars. Paul had seen the overseers with their whips ready to enforce discipline and keep the rowers up to the mark. Paul had seen the slave master who gave the orders which called for a faster pace, or for one side to hold water while the other side pull, enabling ships to turn like a door on a hinge. Paul had heard the steady, endless beat of the drum, which governed the number of strokes per minute, and which guaranteed that all oars would be pulled together in perfect harmony and time. That was how Paul saw his service. He was not the slave driver, swaggering up and down the tiers with whip in hand, driving the gallery slave to their ceaseless toil. Paul said he was not the slave master. He was just a servant. Turn to your neighbor and say, if you want to go any distance for the Lord, just be a servant. Ever got a witness? He was not the man who beat the drum. He was just a servant of God. For that matter, so was Apollos. The eloquent preacher was nothing but a servant. So was the Galilean preacher Cephas. He was nothing but a servant. There's no need of you fussing over this preacher over against the other preacher. If they're called by God, none but a servant. And so he saw them in fellowship. And Paul said, if there is to be any judge and done, let Christ be the judge. Ever got a witness? So Paul's stance on ministry punctures pride. It disallows self-sufficiency. It underscores and punctuates the actuality and activity of mysteries beyond ourselves. And the mysteries are not of our making. They belong to another. They belong to the one whose sovereignty is without challenge. They belong to the one whose domain extend beyond the perimeters of earth and sky. They belong to the one whose sweep is from everlasting to everlasting. They belong to him who is the Ancient of Days and who sitteth on the throne of glory. The mysteries is not ours. They are simply entrusted to us. But they belong to the God of glory who presented us his self-portrait in the field preacher from Galilee. Have I got a witness? We have this treasure in earthen vessel, but it's not our treasure. Have I got a witness? God loaned it to us to cultivate and nurture, but never to own. We're just stewards of the mystery of God. His is the power and his is the glory. And when a preacher preach, people ought not see the vessel, but they ought to see the treasure. People need to see Jesus. When the Holy Ghost comes upon the preacher, there is a light on our face. And there ought to be a light in our heart. Preaching is what God does through the preacher. A steward is a person put in charge of a large estate. A steward is a servant. He is an administrator of someone else's property. A steward is a servant responsible for the work and the trust of the owner. A steward did not make that which he manages. A steward is a manager but can never be the owner. Have I got a witness? That's why I try to remind preachers that the church don't belong to you. It's yours by stewardship, but it's God by ownership. Whenever you try to take God's church, you're going to be in trouble. A steward is accountable unto God. Have I got a witness? Let me close right here. We who are stewards of the mystery of God must give an account to God himself, who is the sole judge of our stewardship. Paul makes it plain in this passage to who judgment belongs. Paul says, with me, it is a very small thing that I should be judged of you, or any man judgment. You can't pass judgment on my work, and I can't pass judgment on your work. The Lord, he is the judge. Have I got a witness? I'm going to my seat now. He's the judge because he's the only one who's qualified to be the judge. Have I got a witness? To some people, you will never be a good preacher. To some people, you will never be a good pastor. To some people, you will never be a good leader. To some people, you will never be a good president. But my advice to you is just to be faithful. Ever got a witness? If you be faithful, God will take care of the detail. Ever got a witness? You don't have to be successful, just be faithful. Help me, Moses, as I go to my seat. Have I got a witness? Moses led the children of Israel out of Egypt, but he did not lead them to the promised land. Moses looked like a failure, but one day out on Mount Pisgah, after many years of marching, I heard God say to Moses, come up a little higher and get a view of Canaan from Dan to Beersheba. Have I got a witness? And there, up there in the summit, God rocked Moses' body to sleep in the arms of death and placed him in paradise. Have I got a witness? Come here, Paul. Help me one more time. Paul looked like a failure, but he was faithful. Have I got a witness? I see him in his last days under house arrest in the city of Rome. He's a prisoner of Nero. His pilgrimage from Damascus to Jerusalem had been a rough journey on a rocky road. He had been beaten, he had been whipped, and he had been left dead. Paul had been shipwrecked. Have I got a witness? He's facing Nero's chopping block. He looked like a failure, but I heard him say, now I am ready. Have I got a witness? I know I look like a failure, but I'm ready. And the time of my departure is at hand. I fought a good fight. I've kept the faith. I've finished my course. There's laid up for me a crown of righteousness. Have I got a witness? Not only to me, but to all of them that love is appearing. Goodbye, warriors. One more witness. Have I got a witness? Can I call just one more? And I'm going to my seat. Jesus looked like a failure. Have I got a witness? Yes, but he was faithful. Jesus left his throne in glory, came all the way down from heaven to earth to die for your sin and for mine. Have I got a witness? Yeah, he fed 5,000 when they were hungry. When they got full, they walked away from him. He looked like a failure. Have I got a witness? The Pharisees hated him. The Sadducees despised him. The powers that be looked to him to be threatening him. So they tried him and they crucified him late one Friday evening. He looked like a failure. Have I got a witness? They nailed his hand. They nailed his feet. He looked like a failure. Somebody said, come on down, save yourself and save us. He looked like a failure. He died. He died. Took him off the cross, laid him in a borrowed tomb. He looked like he was a failure. Stayed there all night, Friday night, all day, Saturday night. He looked like a failure, but Sunday morning, he arose. Yeah. No, he's all right.